Morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order regular council meeting number 1540 for June 15th. And in honor of the Liwat-Tool, the Village of Pemberton acknowledges that we are meeting within the unceded territory of the Liwat Nation. We're going to go in cameras under Community Charter 91C and K. So for members of the public that might be in attendance, we ask that you leave the meeting now to permit council to conduct the closed portion of the meeting. You're welcome to rejoin the webinar again in 5 minutes. If the closed portion of the meeting is still in progress when you rejoin, you will be placed on hold until the open portion of the meeting resumes. And it shouldn't be that long a discussion. So thank you for your patience. If you're waiting for the regular meeting, we'll be back soon. And I'll look for a motion to go in camera, please.
Motion to go in camera.
Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we will reopen the regular meeting. Thanks for those that were patiently waiting. And for members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, I'd like to put forward, I'm not too sure where, I'll let you decide, Mayor. I'd like to discuss another meeting with the Ministry of Health regarding ambulance service overall as compared to Vancouver and other areas, and just have an opportunity to discuss how our station here is performing and what it looks like in the future, please.
Okay, sounds good. We'll put that in the, what number is it?
Oh, A,
No, it's under.
IA.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is under.
It's
It's a UBCM minister discussion meeting,
yeah.
but we can add that there. as
yeah,
is.
what number is the minister's meeting? Sorry, I can't-
AIA,
Okay, so we'll put it-
11 AIA.
Yeah, so we'll include it as part of that discussion. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved as amended.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Noble, any opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of minutes from regular council meeting 1539 from Tuesday, June 1st, moved by Councillor Noble, second. Councillor Antonelli, any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising? None. Rise with a report from in camera. We have one from our last in camera meeting, and this is regarding the VOP bursary that we provide every year for a PSS student. And so at the Pemberton Secondary School graduation ceremonies held on Saturday, June 12th, the village was pleased to present Skylar Williamson with the Village of Pemberton bursary in the amount of $2,000. Skylar will be headed to Queen's University in the fall. And on behalf of the village, I wish Skylar all the best on her studies. No business arising from committee of the whole or committee minutes, delegations. So we're on to reports. 11A, Office of the CAO. I will turn it over to Ms. Gilmore for her verbal report.
I wanted to let you know that with regards to discussions with the Pemberton Valley Diking District, we haven't put forward necessarily a minister meeting because there is a lot of action happening behind the scenes at this point with staff and potentially with the goal of creating some type of working committee with the Flynn-Rowe, Inspector of Dikes. Who else did we have? Ministry of Municipal Affairs, SLRD, Village of Pemberton, and PVDD. And the reason that at this point Liwat's not involved in that conversation is because it surrounds whether or not there's an appetite to have PVDD become part of one of the other organizations, being SLRD or the Village of Pemberton, which will in the end affect funding models or could resolve some of those models. So at this point in discussions, we are not recommending bringing anything forward for PVDD, and we're going to allow the other process to run sort of on its own.
Ms. Gilmore, is there not value in maybe trying to book a minister's meeting, and then if conversations go well between now and September, we could cancel it?
I think there's more work to be done to figure out how that's going to move forward. It probably would take a number of years to actually, probably a couple of years to actually get to the finish line on this.
And the seismic issues and stuff like that, do we not want to discuss those?
There are, again, there is more work happening on that as we move forward.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have a definitive ask at this point because there is progress working on it. And I would say as a result of this, we most likely will have minister meetings. But it will be probably more meaningful and with a lengthier time period to be able to have those conversations rather than the 15 minutes we get at UBCM.
Okay. Any questions? Thoughts on that? Councillor Craddock, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. One of the concerns I think that's been expressed is whether the regional district or the village of Pemberton potentially in the future takes on the ownership of the dikes. I think we would have to approach it the same way we do with boundary expansion when we take over the roads, where the roads have to be brought up to provincial standards ahead of time before we take them over. And I hope that we'll certainly be dealing with that as we go forward, because if we take over the ownership of the dikes right now, that means we have the responsibility where if the government's pushing forward with their earthquake requirements, they're not going to meet those standards. And I don't think that's an asset we really want to have.
Yeah, I believe, that's why it would take so long. I think there's a lot involved. And I agree, we actually had the individual who helped us through when we were contemplating our boundary extension, who is in charge and is sort of a guru in boundary extension and some of the connectedness between whether or not they join with the regional district or Village of Pemberton. She's at the table. So she will definitely be bringing some of those issues forward for us to contemplate.
Good, thank you.
Any other thoughts or question on the diking ministers meeting? Okay. And if I could just add, out of our committee, the whole meeting, I was directed to reach out to the mayor of Squamish to discuss a joint meeting regarding daycare funding, daycare space funding. And I haven't circled back with you, Ms. Fraser, on it, so just to let you know, but yes, we'd like to do a joint meeting and similarly with the one I'm about to speak of in SLRD, but we'd like it to be a joint meeting. It's a joint request as opposed to one of the municipalities makes the request and the other one goes along with. We want them to know that it's an actual joint request. So what I mean by that is often in the past for SLRD meetings, you know, there might be attendees, some council might join on because it's a matter that affects all of us, but it was their request. So we would like to put in a joint request with Squamish to look at daycare space funding. And similarly, I spoke with Jen Ford, the chair of the SLRD, regarding meetings with Flynn Rowe around old growth harvesting, as well as parks and FSRs and that discussion that we had in committee of the whole in terms of resources around that. So they're happy to do joint meetings with us. So, well, first of all, any thoughts or questions on that from council? Is everybody good with that direction? And if so, how would you like to approach it, Ms. Fraser, from the usual administrative side? Do you just contact staff, your counterparts, and put in that joint request, or what would you like from us?
We'll have to look at how that is set up and whether joint requests can be made. It's all online, so we'll reach out to district Squamish staff and the RD staff and see what the best way to approach this is.
Okay, appreciate that. Do you want me to get you staff contacts on that, or you know who to?
We know who to contact, so we'll connect with them and determine how we submit the request.
So would you like motions to that effect then?
Yep, please.
So we'll make them two separate motions. If we can get a motion to do a joint request for a ministers meeting on the topic of with the Minister of Childcare on the topic of daycare space funding with the District of Squamish. Moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And then a motion to have staff work with the staff from the SLRD to request a joint meeting with appropriate ministers regarding old growth harvesting and pressures on FSRs and recreation sites, etc. Moved by Councillor Antonelli, seconded by Councillor Zant. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
And you wanted to discuss the ambulance as well?
And then, yes, a motion to, what is that ministry? That's Ministry of Health, right?
It's Ministry of Health and it's also BC Ambulance Service executive members.
So a motion to request a meeting with the Ministry of Health and BC Ambulance to discuss current service levels in the Pemberton Valley, moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And I'm just going to go back to the report. Was there anything else we wanted to bring to Minister's attention during UBCM? Anybody else have thoughts? No other requests? Okay. Awesome. We're still on CAO report, so we're on number 2, which is the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative funding application, Friendship Trail. Ms. Gilmore.
I'm going to ask Ms. Hutchison to come join and present on this one. I will just preface that we had seen an application for this, I want to say maybe January, for the same round of funding, which we had applied for the barn surfacing. Unfortunately, that did not meet, we were unsuccessful in that grant funding. And so we have not resubmitted for that particular one because the Friendship Trail connector, this piece fit more in alignment with the requirements of the grant. So we were applying for one we thought we had the most success with.
Before we open the discussion, I just want to let you know, I got a text from Councillor Zant. He's not feeling well. He's had to leave us. Hopefully he'll be able to join back in.
Can we bring Ms. Hutchison in?
Yes.
Okay.
We seem to be having a technical glitch and she's not moving in.
Oh, okay.
I can try allowing her to talk from where she is.
Do you want me to try?
Sure, you can try. Yeah.
Guess while we're waiting,
Yep.
do we look ahead to September and potentially meeting in person again? Is that maybe on the agenda, or getting staff back to work in the building too?
So what we're doing right now is obviously we've just gone through phase 2 and we'll have phase 3 coming July 1st. Staff are working to look at what those new allowances, I guess, because what we've been limited with is the amount of people with the flow in the organization and the distancing requirements. And as those become lower, then we can add more people in. So we're going to be looking at a plan and we will bring that back to council so that you're aware of what that plan is moving forward.
Oh, super, great.
We are actively working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see council back in chambers maybe in September if everything goes to the positive.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Good morning. Welcome. We're anxious to hear you report to us on the Healthy Communities Initiative.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here this morning. So the purpose of this report is to seek support for a funding application to the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative for the final stage of the Friendship Trail, the Pemberton Farm Road East Connector. Just a little bit of background, the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative is a federal fund supporting small-scale infrastructure projects that create and adapt public spaces to respond to ongoing needs arising from COVID-19. As CIO Gilmore has already mentioned, you may recall that staff earlier this year submitted an application for the first round of this initiative for the surfacing of the community barn floor and purchase of a portable ice rink. Unfortunately, this application was not successful. The first round of this initiative was extremely competitive. Community Foundations of Canada received over 3,000 applications and awarded funding to 285 of those projects. The project staff would like to put forward for the second round of this initiative. We'll complete one of the final phases of the Friendship Trail, the Pemberton Farm Road East Connector. Council may also recall that in 2020, staff submitted grant applications to both the BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grants Program and the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for this same component of the Friendship Trail. These applications were also unsuccessful. The scope of the project has since been expanded to include cultural recognition installations and bollard lighting at regular increments along the section of the Friendship Trail that fall within the village's jurisdiction. These elements will not only provide a rich cultural experience for the community, recognition of local First Nations cultural heritage, and a safer trail for users, but will significantly enhance the purpose of this asset to encompass a broader range of benefits for the community. Given the change in scope of the project, staff feel it will better meet the criteria of the initiative, as it will deliver on 2 out of the 3 initiative themes, namely improved mobility options and safe and vibrant public spaces, as well as delivering a range of community benefits that align with the aims of this initiative. The completion of the Friendship Trail has been a strategic priority of the village since 2014. The delivery of this project will also meet a number of other village priorities and commitments, including supporting safe, active transit, supporting the village's community climate action plan goal of zero emission transportation, and demonstrate the village's commitment to reconciliation by promoting First Nation cultural recognition and language revitalisation. So just in terms of the costings, the Class C cost estimate totals $622,000. If the application were successful, $250,000 would be covered by the grant funding. Staff recommend council allocate an amount up to $372,000 from the village's COVID-19 Safe Restart Fund and the Community Works Gas Tax Fund to cover the remainder. So to that end, the recommendation is that council support the Village of Pemberton's application to the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative for grant funding up to an amount of $250,000 to go towards the Friendship Trail, Pemberton Farm Road East Connector, and that council allocate an amount up to $372,000 from the village's COVID-19 Safe Restart and Community Works Gas Tax Fund to cover the remainder. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. And Ms. Gilmore, can you remind Council what, our gas tax fund allocation was increased this year. Can you remind Council what our gas tax fund and our COVID restart funds are at?
Mm-hmm. So what we are at right now for our Community Works gas tax funds, we get an annual allocation of about $170,000 a year for this. And at this point in time, we do have a number of initiatives that we have allocated through the budget process, but we have a balance of about $634,000 left in that particular account. As far as the COVID recovery grant, we received, at the end of 2020, we had a balance of $883,500. We got about $940,000, I believe, maybe $80,000 with that from that original grant application. And what we have at year end estimated at this point with the projects we've identified through the budgeting process, a little bit under $485,000.
So there's 670, you said, in gas tax.
634 and 484. Yeah.
And that includes all projects that we've already applied gas tax to for 2021, not including this project.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it to council for questions. Go ahead, Councillor Craddock.
Thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. Just through to Ms. Hutchinson, thank you for the report. And it's nice to see that we're applying again to try and get this trail completed. And I appreciate the numbers from Ms. Gilmore regarding the amount left in the funds. Do we have any understanding or indication of how much would come out of each one? Are we going to have enough money left in the restart fund if we go into that amount of money? I'm just curious, are we taking maybe 150 out of each, or is there any idea there that we can work with?
Thank you, Councillor Craddock. I haven't specified an amount from each fund. However, I might refer to CIO Gilmore on this one.
Ultimately, I think it would come, I'm going to step back a little bit. What we would also like to do is bring forward some other ideas where we can have uses for some of the these funds. We have been advised that the Community Works Gas Tax Fund will come to an end. I think it's 2023 or 2025, I can't recall. So we have to make a commitment to spend all those funds by that date because the program is ending. So that has a little bit more flexibility. So what we are starting to do is identify some projects where we could use the COVID recovery. I would suggest that, you know, maybe it's 50-50, but I think we probably put more from the community gas tax because that will be replenished. So we just want to have a look and leave it a little bit open at this point so we can bring forward some other ideas for council to consider. And then with this in mind, and then we can allocate as we get to the end of the project. So we don't have a percentage split, but we do want to make sure that we're not overspending in one or the other to allow for future projects as we move forward.
Thank you very much. If I could follow up, Mayor Richmond. I heard you say the gas tax fund was potentially ending in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So between that and the restart money, do they both have to be expended by a certain date, or would the money have to be returned?
No, well, we would move ahead with completing the projects. The community gas tax, we've had to sign and say, yes, we will spend those by the end of the time. And we are going to be, obviously, this is a project we could allocate more funds to meet that commitment. The other thing is it's a large number of projects. It's much more flexible. The COVID is definitely more specific. So asset management, we're about to lead off. We're waiting for an announcement for another through the federal government grant announcement. But if not, then we would want to probably consider more asset management and potentially climate action and economic development initiatives coming out of that fund where we could have some more open spaces and for the COVID recovery. So we want to just take a little bit of time in the next few months so that we can actually plan and prepare for next year's budget. The COVID recovery, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a specific end date for the spending to be completed. They want us to, however, similarly to the Community Works Gas Tax Fund, have an annual report and account for the spending. And that will be our annual obligation.
And they have indicated that they would kind of like to see us use the funds in 2 years. They haven't been clear about what happens after 2 years, but they have sort of suggested when the money was provided that it's use it over 2 years. That's what it's for, as its recovery funds, right? But they haven't said, well, we'll take it back.
No.
Okay, Councillor Antonelli, go ahead.
Yeah, what are the funding possibilities for the pavers in the barn?
That is an initiative we would be bringing forward to potentially use some of the COVID recovery for. So that's one of those items that we will bring back to council as a variety of different projects that we could see that could fit either of these programs and that we could allocate them to the budget moving forward. I don't believe that we would be able to achieve many more projects this year, but they would definitely be a good starting point to have a conversation before budget comes up so that we know how we can use and commit the remaining funds.
Yeah, and I think I agree. Thanks for bringing that question up. I'd like to see that as part of the list for sure. And I feel like that there's been crowdsourcing and other local funding opportunities on that one because I think it's such a great community opportunity. Other questions? Okay. Well, I'm happy to support this recommendation. Once our second soccer field is built and our skills park is built, there's going to be a whole lot of people and a whole lot of kids hopefully riding up and down the Friendship Trail to get to those assets. So the sooner we can get this trail finished along there, the safer, the better. So I'm happy to support it. Would somebody like to make a motion to support the recommendation as presented? Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any further discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
May I add one more comment
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
that? One thing that I would like to just flag with council, if we're not successful for this, I would like to bring forward another report to see how we can fund this whole project through these funds to make sure that we just get this done. We have an allotment of funds and it's sort of a key piece to connecting the trail as we see it to the Dendorf Park, which is, I think, a key piece for safety of getting people moving forward. So if we're not successful in this one, I would like a thought about committing gas tax and COVID recovery grants to making this a reality.
Councillor Noble, go ahead.
I just had a question. Until the amenities building is built there, we're seeing a lot more use and the trail connection is going to only increase that. Is there any plans to put any temporary outhouses in that area in the meantime?
We do actually have an outhouse at the Addenda Park, and we've put signage at the mountain bike parking that's a little bit higher up on Pemberton Farm Road East, identifying the location where there are garbage and washroom facilities out there. So we've identified some strategic places for people to know where to go to use the washroom instead of using the outdoors.
Thank you.
Mr. Kalik, did you have your hand up?
I did, but Councillor Noble followed up nicely. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Okay, we're next talking about zero emission vehicle infrastructure. Go ahead, Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here this morning again. The purpose of this report is to seek support from Council for a funding application to Natural Resources Canada Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program for an electric vehicle charging station to be located at 1380 Astor Street, which is Pioneer Park. So just a little bit of background. The Government of Canada has set very ambitious federal targets of zero emission vehicles reaching 10% by 2025, 30% by 2030, and 100% by 2040. To help meet these targets, the Government of Canada have created the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program to address the lack of charging stations across Canada, which is one of the key barriers to zero emission vehicle adoption. This program will support electric vehicle charging infrastructure deployment in parking areas intended for public use. You may recall that in July 2020, staff submitted an application to Natural Resources Canada's Electric Vehicle and Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Deployment Initiative to support the installation of a DCFC charging station, electric vehicle charging station. Council passed a resolution at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, July 28, 2020, in support of this application. Unfortunately, the funding application was declined on that occasion. So the project staff would like to put forward for this program will see the purchase and installation of a direct current fast charger, DCFC charging station for electric vehicles to be located at 1380 Astor Street in Pemberton. The Community Energy Association, who are assisting the village with the development of the Community Climate Action Plan, presented to the Committee of the Whole earlier this year and identified passenger vehicles as Pemberton's largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. The purchase and installation of this electric vehicle charger will support the adoption of zero emission vehicles in Pemberton and help us adopt some of the big moves identified by the Community Energy Association that are to be included in the village's Community Climate Action Plan. So in terms of costings, the cost estimate for one DC fast charger is $128,000. If this grant application were successful, $50,000 would be covered by the grant funding. Now, since this report was submitted to council, staff have conducted a further review of the costings and would actually like to amend the recommendation to allocate $53,160 in the 2021 fiscal year from the Community Works Gas Tax Fund to allocate $58,060 instead. The reason for this amendment is that the rebate from the BC Clean Energy public fast charging program, detailed in the table of page 72 of your agenda package, has actually been reduced from $25,000 to $20,000. So there's a $5,000 gap there. So the recommendation is that council support the Village of Pemberton's application to the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program for the amount of $50,000 towards the purchase and installation of a direct current fast charging station for electric vehicles to be located at 1380 Astor Street, and that council confirm the allocation of $58,060 in the 2021 annual budget from the Community Works Gas Tax Fund as a matching contribution. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you again, Ms. Hutchinson. Any questions? Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, thanks very good. Again, Ms. Hutchinson for the report. I'm just wondering, just recently, we went along with Whistler and Squamish to fund some charging stations. Just, do you recall how much money we put into that also?
No, I don't have that information on hand. Again, I may refer to CAO Gilmore on this. She may remember the details around this one.
Are you referring to the application that we supported through the RMOW? I think it's through the RMOW, right?
Yes,
That's correct. I don't know
I
if
don't think
we've
there
heard back.
Were there funds attached to that?
Yeah.
How much?
I can't recall. I don't have the number with me.
And that was
I-
allocated out of our 2021 budget already.
I think this was a 2022 project, and of which we still have not received confirmation of the funding. The grant has not been announced on that particular one as of yet. I know staff followed up last week.
I guess if I might, the reason I'm asking the question, Mayor Richmond, is my understanding from Hydro is that we can charge for the electricity, but we can't make a profit off of it. We can't resell electricity. So I guess I'm looking at how do we recover the costs of these electric charging stations in the community that we're funding. I know hopefully we'll recover a lot of that because people probably from the city or Whistler will come up here if they know we've got that. So the community businesses will certainly benefit from that, but I don't know how we're going to recover that from costing out the charging stations.
I'll go ahead to CL Gilmore.
I think that, fortunately for us, because we do have community gas tax funds and they actually are, this is one of the projects that are eligible for that. It's not, we could reallocate it to other initiatives, but it's not a direct impact on the taxpayer. And as you mentioned, Councillor Craddock, we are currently charging. So at least we would be at zero for the consumption, the energy consumption for charging. We could put a rate that made us at even. So in all reality, this would likely have no impact on the taxpayers other than using gas tax funds to put towards this particular project. And sorry, it was $20,000 that we allocated towards the joint initiative with Whistler and Squamish and Luwa. That was our matching contribution.
Okay, thank you for that. And looking down the road when potentially we have an awful lot more of the charging stations in town because they're hooked to the town meter, so to speak, that could very much change our level of cost if everybody's hooking up at the high end of when electricity is being consumed. So that's, if anything, the concern is we can never recover the full amount, but I'm glad to hear that we are charging for it and that we're supporting what I think is a very important item for the community. So I can certainly support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Craddock. Can you remind me where the joint submission chargers would be going?
They're at Dendorf Park.
At Dendorf Park.
Yeah.
And this application, and sorry, is that a fast charger as well, or is that that was a regular?
No, I do not. I believe it was 2 to 4 chargers that were going to be placed out there.
Yeah, but not the
I think it was 2. No.
And we've talked about the barn before and Pioneer Park. Can staff maybe just speak to why the recommendation suggests Pioneer Park is the best location?
Some of the rationale is that we need 3-phase power in order to put this particular charger in, and would only increase our costs as we do not have that service at the barn. Also, where the parking spots are on Astor Street, you're sort of pulling into where the charger is. If we were to put it in, it would probably be in the large parking lot because obviously we're parallel as we go along Frontier Street. So logistically, it just is a little bit more complicated. And so for that reason, we've identified as Astor being the preferred location.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And I won't get too much into the weeds, but I've heard from electric car owners that one of the best configurations is if you could have 4 cars come in 2 sides or both sides, so that there's potential for 4 cars to be able to charge. Any other questions? Thoughts? Would somebody like to move the recommendation with the amendment to $58,060 from gas tax allocation?
Move it.
Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for both of those reports, Ms. Hutchinson. Have a great day. We're going to wait for Ms. White to join us for the next item. Good morning, Ms. White. Thank you for joining us. Whenever you're set up, we'd love to hear from you about the Village of Pemberton bursary policy.
Having me here today, Mayor and Council. As you've alluded to, Mayor Richmond, I'm here to talk about the village bursary policy and just a slight amendment to the policy for 2022 onwards. To provide a little bit of background to Council, that each year the village receives applications from the local high school students who are planning to attend post-secondary education. The bursary provides the successful student with a financial award that's allocated from the Community Enhancement Fund. The purpose of this bursary is to recognise students with outstanding citizenship, leadership and volunteerism, and who intend to pursue post-secondary education. The award is also historically considered financial need in order to provide assistance and encouragement to promising young students challenged by the costs of education. Following the review of the 2021 application, staff were tasked to remove the requirement to supply a financial plan as part of the application process. So on page 76 of your agenda package, you'll see a copy of the village bursary policy with some proposed amendments highlighted. And what I'm seeking approval from Council today is just to formalise those amendments. Please let me know if you have any questions at all.
Thank you very much, Ms. White. Any questions? Councillor Zat.
Thank you, Mayor Richmond. Just in regards to the policy, I'm wondering if this would give us the opportunity now to maybe amend the policy to increase the amount of the bursary, or give Council the ability to split the bursary if we find it necessary that there's 2 applicants or 3 applicants that we just can't decide on, but yet we'll have the ability to split it if need be.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I think if there's willingness, we could discuss the ability to split it. I think if we would like to consider increasing the bursary, then that would be something as part of budget conversation. Would probably be the way to approach that.
Okay. Can we have that put on staff's radar for when budget 2022 comes up?
Sounds good.
Did we get a
Did we
resolution?
make a
to that
resolution?
effect?
Yeah.
So a motion to have the policy come back at budget time to consider the ability to split the bursary as well as the potential to increase the dollar figure.
Thank you. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Councillor Noble. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other questions on what Ms. White has brought to us? Seeing none, would somebody like to? Go ahead.
Do
ahead,
you
Ms.
want to, I just have sorry, I just want clarity around, I think there's 2 different elements here. There's the potential to increase the budget, which would be a budget item, but splitting or allowing Council to have the ability to split the budget or split the allocation between potential applicants would be something that would be in the policy, and it's something you could probably do now if you wanted to. It wouldn't be connected to budget necessarily.
I feel that
Nope.
it is connected to budget in the sense that if we're going to allocate more funds, then it changes the conversation. If we're splitting
Okay.
$2,000, then I don't know, but that's just my quick thought. Is what is.
I agree with Mayor Richmond.
Okay, all right.
If there's no other questions on what's been presented, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the policy as amended?
Make the motion.
Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Ms. White. Have a great
Thank you
afternoon.
very
And we're going to go on to finance next. We'll wait for more staff to join us.
Can we also make sure that Tom is joining us on this one as well, please?
Mhm.
Sheena, can you try moving Tom in? I'm not able to.
How you doing, Lena?
Hello, good morning.
We don't have to wait for Tom to say good morning to you. Oh, that's Tom. Morning, Tom.
Hi everyone.
Hi, thanks for joining us. When you guys are all set up, we'd like to hear about the MFA equipment financing.
All right. Well, good morning to Mayor and Council. We're here to discuss or to seek Council's approval to amend the short-term equipment financing with the Municipal Finance Authority of BC for the funding of the Public Works loader as per the 5-year financial plan. As identified in the 5-year financial plan and 2021 budget, a loader was requested to replace retiring equipment used for public works. The liability replaces the completed debt payments on the retiring equipment. The following resolution was passed by the Village of Pemberton Council, that the Council of the Village of Pemberton authorizes up to $275,000 be borrowed for the purpose of a loader. After receiving quotes for the replacement of the loader, it was determined that a new loader could be purchased for the reduced expense of $184,105, which included a $30,000 credit for the trade-in of the retiring equipment. The 2021 budget included an allowance supporting an equipment loan up to $275,000, leaving a borrowing capacity of $90,895 on the previous resolution. As a result, the operations manager reviewed the village's equipment inventory and identified other aging equipment that would benefit replacement in 2021. An excavator purchase was identified in the 5-year financial plan, and a request has been made to move this purchase up to 2021. Quotes of $94,138, $100,506, and $100,045 have been received for an excavator. As you see in table 1, these are the 3 quotes received and what makes up that value. The Kubota excavator is available immediately for use in the summer servicing. Both the John Deere and the Doosan require order and shipping time for delivery. So the Kubota is what we have focused on today. MFA has an equipment financing program that takes the place of the former leasing program. Loans under the short-term borrowing are available to municipalities pursuant to Section 175 of the Community Charter, liabilities under agreements. As planned capital expenditures for the 2021 financial plan, the loader and excavator can be accommodated in the current operating budget. The calculating floating interest rate of the loans is 0.94%, so not quite 1%. That's up 0.01% since we passed budget. The following are the 2 possible loan payments and interest for the loader that we have priced out at $184,105, and for the Kubota excavator at $100,506. Staff are seeking Council's approval to purchase additional equipment, the Kubota excavator as shown in table 1, in the amount of $100,506, which would increase the liability amount from $275,000 to $284,611. Increasing the loan liability to match the Kubota excavator quote of $100,506 increases the monthly fixed payment from $1,551 to $1,715. Purchasing the higher priced excavator increases the payments budgeted in the 2021 budget by $985. We only budgeted for half a year of payments, which can be accommodated by the reduction in excavator rental expenditures in the 2021 budget. So we would be replacing rental fees for principal payment fees. Should council not authorize the additional equipment purchase, the loan liability may also be reduced to match the actual cost of the loader, which is $184,105, reducing the monthly payments. Purchasing the loader at the reduced cost decreases payments budgeted by $9,308 in 2021, and annually that is $18,617. The quotes for the additional equipment have been provided by the Public Works Department. If you have any questions regarding these quotes, now would be maybe time for Tom to step in.
Mr. Chima, would you like to speak to these equipment purchases?
Well, I guess I'm more here for questions that you might have, but yeah, I mean, essentially, we did plan to get an excavator this year. We pulled that from the budget because we identified the need for a loader, and we were very pleased to be able to find a suitable loader under the cost that we budgeted. So I think it's a great opportunity to get both pieces of equipment, and really, I feel quite good about these machine purchases. And as Ms. Martin pointed out, we wouldn't actually need to increase the budget. It would just be using the allotted loan plus a little bit more extra. I will note that I included in the price on that report the extended warranty. Speaking to the sales rep, he says most people for excavators do not purchase the extended warranty. So if there's concerns about that increase, we could, that's something that I'd be willing to sacrifice. The other items, the angle blade and the cleanup bucket and these items, I think are critical to our operation, but yeah, that there is some savings there if we decide not to get the extended warranty.
Thank you, Mr. Chima. This was identified in the 2021 budget. As you said, we pulled it out and pushed it to next year. So currently the Public Works rents an excavator when we can't use what we've got.
Well, technically, yeah, we would normally rent an excavator for any project that we're using it for. Our main project would be the ditching work that we've been doing on an annual basis. I'd like to do more of. We have quite a few, as you all know, we have stormwater management is an issue in Pemberton. So it's something that I'd like to put a focus on. And so we'll be doing more and more of this ditching work. We also have identified the trail widening project at 1 Mile Lake, which this machine could potentially do, as well as many other projects. I do find that we're doing quite a bit of work ourselves. And, for example, the subdivision at the SLRD transfer station lot, we did the servicing connections to that. We had to rent an excavator for that. Any of the water main repairs that we do, we have the backhoe, which is quite good in a pinch, but the nice thing with an excavator, especially for ditching long trenches, you have tracks and you travel along and dig, whereas the backhoe you have to park and then set up the stabilizers and position yourself each time. So I think this would be fully complement our fleet to have an excavator, and then it would save up to $10,000 per year that we would be normally paying on rentals. So the benefit of this Kubota machine that is currently sitting in our yard, actually, if anyone's interested in seeing it, we've been test driving it, is that machine would be the one we get, and it would be here. So if we make the purchase, then we have it, and we can continue with all of the projects, which I had included in our roads budget for ditching. That would be savings that we could use for other projects and other works.
So thank you. Questions for Mr. Chima or Ms. Martin? Councilor Craddock.
Thanks very much. And Tom, it's good to see that you found a 2-for-1 purchase under that price range. Concerned again to hear from Ms. Martin that we're talking about trading in the loader. Is that correct? Because I thought council given direction that we would keep that so that we could have it as a spare out at the sewer treatment plant.
So we do have a backhoe at the treatment plant that's stationed there. We looked at the possibility of keeping a loader, but it didn't really make much. basically we can get $30,000 for this loader. That was quite surprising that we would get that much for it. To rebuild the cab on it, we're looking at closer to $100,000, and I don't feel safe with any operator in this machine. So strictly speaking, I think that this is way more than I would have expected to get for it. And I don't think it would be used at the plant, and inevitably it would just rot away and it would end up being a piece of dead equipment that would sit at the plant. So we did some repairs and modifications to the old backhoe, which is stationed at the plant full time. And that's what our operators use for loading if we ever do have to go and pick up loads of material at the plant. And that's been sufficient for our needs. So I don't think keeping the old loader, and then part of it obviously is to get the cost down so that we could make this purchase. And I think an excavator would be a lot more serving our equipment needs a lot better than this old loader.
So with the new Kubota loader, is it the same capacity as the old one? And will the attachments that we have for it, like the street sweeping, fit it? Or are we going to be looking at more costs down the road to upgrade the attachments for this new machine?
So the Kubota machine is the excavator. The loader that we're purchasing is a Doosan. That machine, that's one of the specific reasons we chose the machine, was that it has an attachment that we've included in the cost, which allows us to use all of our current attachments of the loader. And yes, as for capacity, it is equal to what we had. So it would be a direct replacement, and all of the costs for attachments. There was also some added benefits. For example, this Doosan loader that we will be purchasing, you can attach a snow blower attachment, which we would like to look at in the future. We have a blower for our skid steers, which we use for the sidewalks, but they're incredibly effective, and it's something that we might investigate for a loader as well, for doing large parking areas. So that's potential cost in the future, but that would be to improve efficiencies, and that would be something that we would put in the budget. But it's not something we currently have, but it would have the capability of doing that, which our current loader does not.
And Mayor Richmond, if I can continue, I don't want to be on anybody else's time.
Go ahead, one more.
Just, I'm wondering too, Mr. Sema, on the new excavator, is it a track machine or is it rubber tired, or we're going to have to load it and haul it everywhere we take it?
It is a track machine, includes rubber tracks so that we can drive it on the road. One of the specific reasons we've chosen the Kubota is that it would fit in our current trailer. So yes, we would need to, generally you don't drive excavators long distances, but it's quite easy to load onto the trailer, and we could take it wherever the job requires, which is standard for an excavator. So usually when we rent an excavator, there's also a delivery charge and pickup charge, even the small ones. But the small ones you can put on just a trailer, and this one fits on our current trailer. So.
And you feel the purchase price of $100,000 is reasonable, considered that you feel that you're only spending about $10,000 a year in rental? Is this a 10-year machine then?
Absolutely. And I think that the $10,000 a year that I was referring to was just what we've got slotted in this year. I think there's also efficiencies that are harder to define in terms of dollars, but the work and the projects that we've been taking on and continue to take on, I think that this is a necessary piece of equipment. As I said, with the ditching work, I think it's been quite minimal what we have been doing in the past, and as well as some of the other work that we get away with the backhoe, it makes it more of a mess. It's not the right tool for the job, so to say. And this was, as I said, identified in our 5-year plan previously. So I didn't really think this was an argument to argue for the necessity of the machine, more around the fact that there's an opportunity get one now, as opposed to postponing it to future years. But yes, I do think it would absolutely be a useful piece of equipment for the Village of Pemberton.
Great. And just the last thing is, I've been asked quite a bit about the new purchases and not having a picture or any identification to look at. I couldn't explain to people what we're getting. Is it possible that you could, I'll drop up and take a look at the machine, the excavator up there, but can you send us pictures of the two new purchases so we have some indication of what they are?
Sure, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. I can provide you the specifications if you're interested in that.
Yeah, I think pictures and that would be really helpful so that when we're being asked on the street about it, we have some indication of our new purchase. So thank you very much.
Councillor Antonelli, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I like the idea of swapping out rental payments for principal payments. And I also like the idea of building our in-house capacity to do those kind of projects. They do seem like really big budget items for a small municipality. And I'm wondering, do you know what other municipalities have in terms of this kind of heavy equipment? Is this comparable or?
Well, definitely the loader. I mean, we can't operate winter operations without it. It's our main machine for clearing side roads and intersections. I couldn't imagine operating without it. As for the excavator, most municipal, like my colleagues in other municipalities, are surprised that we don't have one. So to answer your question, I believe it's a pretty standard piece of equipment for a municipality. I think that these things last a long time. They don't see the abuse, so to say, that a loader would, especially as I mentioned, we're using the loader for winter operations, so it's exposed to salt and the weather variations. The excavator would be mainly used for special projects, and I do believe that, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned the salesperson actually told me not to worry so much about the 5-year warranty, and that most people don't purchase that because it doesn't see the amount of abuse that the loaders generally do. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's a pretty standard thing to have, even for a small municipality. As I mentioned, my main focus on this machine would be to use for stormwater management and taking care of the ditches. And luckily we do work with the Diking District quite often. They'll often lend us their excavator, but my hope was that they could also use this one in return for something. Theirs is much bigger, and oftentimes when we use it, it's not really the appropriate size machine for the jobs that we're doing. So I think that this would be absolutely an asset that we would like to have.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Suzanne, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to staff for answering all of our questions today, all valid questions, and I feel that the report given it's been great. In saying that, I appreciate Mr. Sisma's hard work to find us a couple deals out there and being able to answer all these questions from the hip. And in saying that, I'll move option 1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second it.
Further discussion? I'm happy to support it too. I think I agree with Councillor Zant. Great job being able to get both these pieces of equipment for basically the same price. And I totally agree with the ditching opportunities on this. We've talked about ditching and drainage in many of our neighborhoods. So I think this is a great job by staff. So thank you for that. And with that, I will call the question on any opposed. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chima. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, Mr. Chima, don't go on. No, you're later. You're later. Never mind. We'll see you later. So next up is Development Services. I'm going to wait for a couple other staff to join us. There we go. Good morning, Ms. Pedrini. Good morning, Ms. Segovia. Thank you for joining us. When you guys are ready, I will turn it over to you to talk to us about the Board of Variance terms of reference.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting you today with an amendment that I mentioned during my last report to Council in camera for the Board of Variance terms of reference, which are now outdated and were not amended when the current Board of Variance bylaw was passed in March of 2021. The current terms of reference are dated to 2012 and are attached as Appendix A on page 88 of your package. As I mentioned, they currently refer to the old bylaw, and in my report, you'll be able to see a table of suggested changes, and you may also see the track changes attached as Appendix B on page 92. In summary, the changes include the removal of a specific reference to bylaw number, and this will limit the need to continuously amend the terms of reference each time a bylaw is amended. The removal of the requirement for members to be appointed in staggered terms, the addition of a delegation of authority to allow for flexibility in amendments, and the removal of references to specific Board of Variance bylaw, terms of reference, and code of conduct from the reference section. This will limit the need to amend all documents each time the bylaw or code of conduct is updated. It should be noted that the code of conduct is a standalone document, and all members of village committees or commissions must review and sign this document upon appointment. You will see the clean amended version of the terms of reference attached as Appendix C on page 97 of your package, and it is recommended that this version be approved as presented. Please let me know if you have any questions about the amendments.
Thank you very much. Any questions? We had a discussion on this already once. It's clear for everyone. Any comments?
Move as amended.
So the recommendation moved by Councillor Zant, second by Councillor Noble. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Hopefully Mr. Chima didn't go too far. Mr. Chima, welcome back. We're happy to hear you talk about water whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Just a moment, I had to scroll down to my report here. Right, so I'm here today to present to Council our 2020 Drinking Water System Annual Report. You may recall this is something that we do every year, and we submit it to Vancouver Coastal Health as a requirement of our operating of a water system. The report is attached in the appendix, and yeah, essentially it's pretty straightforward. It's basically a summary of our quality results and what systems we have in place, and it's posted on our website for the public to see as well. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I won't get into too much of the technical aspects of it unless you have questions about them.
Questions? Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Seaman. And thank you for getting back to a concerned citizen the other day that lived in Estrada. Can you maybe just explain to council how stratas are hooked into our system and the fact that us flushing our systems don't clean their systems?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Craddock. So yeah, what Councillor Craddock is referring to is we did have a concern from a resident of one of the townhouse complexes that they noticed a chlorine smell in their water. And I did mention that as part of our maintenance, we flush all the lines. The stratas tend to have connections at the property line, which then go into their properties and typically have some dead ends on their lines. we only flush the main lines. And so just like in someone's home, up to the property line is where the village maintains the water system. It's less likely to have problems in a home system, but with the townhouse complexes, they do have usually runs of water lines that can be dead-ended, and then that might be a point where sedimentation occurs and there's buildup. So we do notify all the stratas to do flushing of their lines. We can't really enforce that they must do that, but it's highly recommended to maintain high quality of water. It's just like anyone's. It's similar to the corrosivity issues that we've seen in the past, that the water supply is not always the issue, but if internally the system, we can't really be responsible for the maintenance of the strata water lines, and it's similar to the strata roads or anything else. It's just part of the maintenance program that a strata would need in place. I think that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. That really does. I appreciate that. Just one last question that just came to mind. Do stratas have backflow valves so that their system doesn't flow back into ours and contaminate it?
Well, technically, yes. To answer your question, yes. Most homes do as well have a backflow preventer. That's generally to prevent contamination. Contaminants are not exactly the same thing as the sedimentation that I'm talking about. That's something that's in the water supply. We're aware of, manganese and iron, small particles that builds up over time. So I wouldn't really call that a contaminant. Contaminants would more be either from a drain line or, irrigation systems are required to have backflow preventers. The concern of contamination back into our system, no. However, as I mentioned, that is still water coming from our supply. So technically the sedimentation is not a contaminant. It would just be build up over time, which happens in all of our water mains, which is what we flush out periodically through the hydrants. And we just use high pressure flows out of the hydrants. You've probably seen our guys flushing from time to time, and then that can also cause stir up of sediment, which we generally get calls about when that is happening. But no, there's not a concern of contamination from the stratas.
Good. Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Zant, did I see your hand?
Yeah, my question was just, or thank you, Mayor Richard. My question was just in regards to the manganese aesthetic quality guidelines, and it more revolves around the guidelines than it does the what was found from Health Canada. And when they say guidelines, is that specifically recommendations, or are we held to that standard for our water certificate for the village? Like, do we have to change, or I can't think of it right now, but do we have to change wells if the manganese goes over the limit? That's why I'm asking, is it a guideline or is it a recommendation?
So the guidelines around manganese specifically were introduced in 2019. Previously, there was only an aesthetic objective. There's an aesthetic objective, which is essentially a level at which you'll start to see aesthetic issues, not any health issues.
Right. Okay.
The new standard was around a maximum allowable concentration, the MAC, and that's the new value, which is based on the fact that there have been studies showing possible health effects once exposed to those limits for extended periods of time. So to answer your question, Vancouver Coastal Health is the regulator on our water system. This is part of why we submit these reports. If we were to sustain levels of manganese higher than the maximum allowable concentration for a significant amount of time, then yes, they would require that we take action on that, because they've set that standard as maximum allowable concentration because of the possible health effects at that levels. If 1 month we get a number that's just above the MAC, we report it to them. We're aware that we do have manganese higher manganese levels, and we're floating right around the aesthetic objective. And we have seen from time to time, it reaches the maximum allowable concentration. Their concern is not necessarily, oh, okay, the water's poisonous, you can't drink it or anything like that. It's more sustained levels for long periods of time. We're currently working on looking at filtration and treatment for those levels, so they're not expressing too much concern around our higher manganese levels. But to answer your question, yes, the maximum allowable concentration is the limit at which there may be health concerns. Now, I'll also just add to that we did research other countries, and Canada has one of the tightest maximum allowable concentrations that we've seen. Some other countries have double that limit. So in terms of the health concerns, as I said, it's not something that would be an immediate concern, and also that would be serious. But there is a reason that they introduced that maximum allowable concentration.
Excellent. Thank you. That was a very thorough answer. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Zisma.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, could I get a motion to receive, please?
Motion received.
Seconded by Councilor Noble. Further discussion. Actually, quick comment. I watched a couple in the restaurant the other day stop a staff and point to their water glasses and say, "Is this out of your tap?" And they're from the city. And the staff said yes. And they're like, "Can we get some more?" they couldn't. They thought it was bottled water. So I thought it was a nice little anecdote. Thank you for the report. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chima.
Thank you for having me.
We'll wait for Ms. Burns to join us next. Everybody's good to carry on. We've been at this for an hour and 3/4. We're moving our way. We're good. Good morning, Ms. Burns. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me.
When you're ready to go, we'd love to hear about the outdoor basketball court options.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again for having me. The purpose of this report for Council today is to update you on the outdoor basketball court project. We have produced a couple of renderings of proposed options and presented to the Pemberton Valley Utilities and Services Committee, so PVIS, and they have made a recommendation on a location for you to consider. As you may recall, in 2019, staff initiated conversations with the school district in regard to installing the outdoor basketball court at Signal Hill Elementary. However, since those conversations were initiated by my predecessor, Signal Hill Elementary has moved forward with putting outdoor garden space there. With current projects moving forward in that area, it's no longer an option on Signal Hill property. We had presented to PVIS on April 8th the potential for adding the outdoor basketball court to the Great Lawn. And then we were referred back to come up with some potential other opportunities. And at that time, we took also the opportunity to produce some professional renderings for Council to consider. Our proposed new locations are still the Great Lawn. And option 1 is for Lot 8 on Frontier Street. Just past the current parking space, just north of the barn. There's some advantages for this site. It's easy to develop. It improves an underutilized and disturbed site. It has some multi-use potential in supporting the downtown community barn with events and activities. It's easy site for construction. And then on top of that, there's washroom facilities nearby as well. The disadvantages are that it's not close to the community center for maintenance and security purposes, so we would need a maintenance plan for that. It does not centralize activities on the community space currently by Pemberton District Community Center. There is some neighborhood impact, however, it's a low residential density. And the concept plan for this area has yet to be developed and will need to be considered as well. Option 2 is our Great Lawn. And our advantages there are that it's super close to the Pemberton and District Community Center. It centralizes activities for youth in a designated community space. It activates an underutilized year-round green space, and it enables opportunity for other uses such as community fairs and artisan shows. Disadvantages are loss of existing green space, impacts to even more green space during construction, moderate expenses to site prep, impact to existing paved trails, higher landscape and screening costs, and site access for construction is limited, and the neighborhood impact to the west side only has a higher residential density. Staff has considered the option of moving the court out of town to Dendalf Park. However, we decided not to pursue this option at this time for the following reasons. The creation of a location near the downtown core was deemed important, especially considering this amenity is primarily for youth. Following construction of the fields at Dendalf Park, the only space remaining to be developed is larger facility complexes. And at this time, we deem it necessary to move forward with a recreation master plan to determine the exact plans for that space. We will be undertaking an official community plan review beginning this year and following this project. And we do recommend that we do this master plan for recreation first. We do also anticipate that there will be basketball included in that master plan for that space. If you refer to Appendix A on page 70, that is your renderings for Frontier Street, Lot 8. And Appendix B on page 71 would be where we recommend the basketball court be placed on the Great Lawn. Sorry about that. We do recommend that council supports the development of the outdoor basketball court on Lot 8 on Frontier Street as recommended by the PBIS board. At this time, I am open for questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burns. And maybe I could just add very quickly, although I think you summed it up well, the conversation with PBIS the other day sounded, I mean, basically we got the same report, and discussion was centered around, you know, when the Dendalf Park discussion came up, there was discussion that it would be a good spot for a basketball court moving forward or down the road. But the goal for this court is to provide more activities for youth in the town center area, walkable within the community. And that was more the goal there. So yeah, I don't think there was much else to it. PBIS felt that the PBIS committee felt that the Frontier spot was the best spot for it, and that it would, you know, as a vision is created for the rest of that space, it would tie in well with the rest of that community space, as it is sort of restricted by the railway on one side. And I think that was pretty much it. Councillor Zant, is there anything else from the PBIS meeting that you'd like to add?
Here we go. No, I think you pretty much got it all there, Mayor Richmond. Aside from there was unanimous support to put the basketball court there. My only question was if it will or will not impact the RV parking, but from the report that Ms. Gilmore gave us, it won't, which is good to hear. And like I said, I agree with you. Basketball is an inclusive sport. It's easy to play. There's not a lot of equipment required. And I think having this basketball court in that area will do a lot for the local businesses as well. You're going to have a lot of traffic through there, which I think will only help our downtown core. And I feel that this is a good spot.
Questions for Ms. Burns? Councillor Antonelli, then Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, I support the spot by the barn. I'm glad to see it's not going in the Great Lawn. I think that space, the gathering space, is just really important. So yeah, I think this option is good. I'm wondering if there's any safety or regulation issues with it being near the tracks.
I might refer to CAO Gilmer for that response.
This will be fenced, obviously, and we will make sure that we're placing it in appropriate setbacks. I think the tracks, I mean, it's no closer to where the barn's going to be. I would say it's actually even more secure than the barn because it's an open area at the barn, so a little bit more safety. As we've all been witness to, we know that the number of trains on the track have been significantly reduced. I wouldn't say for certain that we shouldn't still consider that because the lines are still deemed by CN to be active. So we will make sure that we've added areas of buffer and just to make it the safest we can.
Thank you. Councillor Craddock.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Rich. I guess the concern I have for putting it in that site is two things, the noise and the lighting. And across the street, there's a potential development that may go in on those two lots, which will include residential. And if you've ever lived beside a basketball court, the constant banging of the ball is certainly a lot of noise that some people don't prefer to have, and the lights on late at night. So I certainly want a place for the kids to come and play sports, but the same concerns you brought up about having it in town are the same concerns I brought up regarding the soccer fields and the bike skills park. And after discussion, we put both of those out in Denduff Park. So the kids are still having to travel out there to do those sports. And I don't understand why we've got such a great opportunity going on out there that we don't continue using that site for what it was set up for. So I don't believe putting it in a location in the downtown core is advantageous to the community. And if we're going to make little kids run out to the soccer field or the bike skills park, and we're upgrading the trail for another $650,000, I really can't understand why we're not putting this out there where it should be, where it'll all be in one spot, easy to maintain. We're going to have the proper washrooms, not outhouses. We're going to have lighting out there, and there's absolute minimal impact on residential. So I feel that the Denduff Park is where it needs to go, and that's what we should be doing. I understand that there's been no study done on what we want to do in those parks to expand it, but we didn't have a study when we put the bike skills park out there. So neither site has had the study, but we need to find a place. And I really believe that Denduff Park is the correct place to put it.
Councillor Noble, go ahead.
I would support the Lot 8 location. I understand the need to have some amenities in town for the youth, and I think it's as low an impact, an amenity that we could have in town for them as there is. And I think it's an excellent location that should have minimal impacts.
Thank you. My thoughts are similar. I think that we're looking. Yeah, we're building soccer fields, and Denduff Park is the hub for recreation, the future for recreation. And I really hope there will be an outdoor basketball included in that master plan when we get there, because I think it's important. What we're trying to provide is activities that are easy and within reach of residents in downtown and in the neighborhood. So you have to ride your bike out to go play a soccer tournament when the soccer fields are ready, but you can grab a ball and go out and kick it around on a number of green spaces around town and walk out there with your kids or your friends or meet your pals on your bikes and go kick a ball around. You can now, once this is built, go play basketball. These are the sorts of activities I think we're trying to provide our residents in general, and especially our youth. I think we've recognized the lack of activities is definitely not a positive thing for our youth, or any youth, and this is quick and accessible. So I feel like it complements, you know, ideally it would be right next to the community center as that little hub of recreation, but unfortunately we don't have the space. So I think this is the next best location. And I think if you go to any city in the world, you will find neighborhoods that surround parks and basketball courts and outdoor hockey rinks, because these are the noises of life and community. And that's what you find in most neighborhoods. We just are going backwards in the sense we have to still build these amenities, so they're new to us. But that's how most neighborhoods are built, is around activities. And yes, there's some noise with it, but I think it'll be a joyful noise. So I totally support this location. Councillor Zant?
Or just one follow-up question, just in regards to Councillor Craddock's mention about the lights. I don't remember seeing lights being in a part of this project. Is that something that will be installed or in the future will be installed? And if so, does the village have a bylaw for when lights are turned on or off for as far as timing during the day and night?
Thank you, Councillor Zant. Who would like to take that?
CAO Gilmore, would you like to take it, or
Yeah.
I have a response as well?
If you want to talk about the lights, I can talk about the bylaw and requirements.
Okay. Councillor Zant, thank you for asking. At this time, what we are doing some research on solar powered lights on a timer. So obviously our goal is not to have a lighted recreational space that goes beyond our noise bylaw, which I believe 11 p.m. is as late like after 11. Any unwanted noise can be reported for the noise bylaw. But CAO Gilmore, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah,
I have nothing to add. Yeah.
And certainly it's within our ability, if we feel that there's impacts to the neighborhood, we don't have to go to 11 o'clock either. It's our time. There are timers to set,
right,
with respect to the neighborhood.
And Mayor Richmond, if I may, just one comment. I just wanted to say I was happy to hear you mention that you're with solar power lights. It's a nice direction for the village to be moving. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is somebody prepared to make a motion?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said if there's no more questions or comments, is somebody prepared to make a motion? Councillor Antonelli, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment that 11 o'clock does seem late, and that I think we should monitor that. Just keep it in mind and listen to what the public has to say about that. Other than that, I will make the motion.
I'll second.
As presented for the Frontier Lot 8 location, further discussion. I totally agree with Councillor Antonelli's comments. We certainly don't need to go to 11. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Burns.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You too. Okay. We're getting there. We have no bylaws today. My mayor's report is relatively brief. I only have a couple meetings to report on. We've already talked about PVIS. Was the center that was a basketball court, as well as first quarter financials, which were fairly straightforward. One interesting meeting I did participate in was, further to the discussions we've had here at council regarding parks and backcountry and forest service roads and rec sites and all the impacts that we're seeing, and how we have tried to, the discussion we've had and some of the work. Councillor Zant was on the forum about tourism, and it's part of the ECDEV work that Councillor Craddock's part of, all that stuff, Tourism Pemberton. So on this call, we had, there was myself, the Mayor of Squamish, the chair of the SLRD, MLA Sturdy, and then staff from Conservation, Parks, Flynn Rowe. So it was really helpful to hear from some of those staff and those people on the ground to hear what they're seeing out there. It was an interesting call because, we had different levels of elected as well as staff. So it was almost awkward at times So for instance, when I said to a member of or staff from Parks and talked about what kind of resources they would like to see us lobby for to help with their work, there was a reluctance to, I kind of put them on the spot and realized it after and changed course a little bit, but there was a reluctance to sort of answer to it because there was all different sort of elected officials and different branches on there. So in effect, what we talked about is what they saw, what they're seeing, and what we can do to lessen the impact of some of the backcountry tourism that we're seeing. And education was definitely at the center of the conversation. There was two big pillars. One was education. The conservation officer had a lot of really good comments to make about how we can educate people further. And there was a real optimism around it that, you know, from these people that work on a day-to-day basis out there, that we can make a big difference through a joint education program. So, you know, with the sort of participation and collaboration we had in this meeting, how can we work towards education and no impact tourism in our backcountry? And the other aspect in terms of lobbying for resources that we talked about, what we heard a lot was the need for more data. If we're going to continue to go to the province ministers' meetings, whatever it is that we do, and we lobby for more resources and boots on the ground, as we say, the need is to have more data. You know, I heard from some of the staff saying, look, if they can go to their bosses and we can go to our provincial avenues and say, here's the numbers. This is the sheer volume of people and increase that we're seeing to our area. And so they shared a number, and I don't have it in front of me, with the increase in visitation, for instance, to Paradise Valley. And I think it was something like 30 or 40% over the last year and a half or 2 years that they've seen. And that's a big jump in visitation. So the conversation in terms of next steps was how can we collaborate to collect that data, support the collection of data so that we can then, as elected, go out and do our lobbying bit and see if we can get the appropriate resources. So it was a good call, it was good collaboration, some interesting information. Most of my other meetings have been around you know, the vaccination program and the restart, BC Restart, which I think, you know, we heard our announcements yesterday. I think we're all up to date on that. It was good news to hear the update yesterday and have confirmation that, you know, group sizes outdoors have increased, indoors under certain circumstances have increased. You know, travel has opened up. So good news. The numbers of cases are obviously going down every day, which is great news. And so I feel like we as a province and a society, and we here in Pemberton, are headed in a much brighter direction. And I'm hopeful that we can all enjoy a really great summer and get closer together to each other in that social activities. Indoor sports have been approved, which is another great one. I know somebody's excited about that. So lots of good news there. And I think it's also important to remember as we move through the restart and reopening, that as we close down, there is a whole level of comfort, or the whole spectrum of comfort levels in terms of how people in our community and from outside are feeling about that reopening. And I think, you know, the same respect we've shown each other all the way through this pandemic, we need to show that same tolerance for each other's comfort levels as we go through the reopening. But I'm hopeful this is the beginning of the end, and we can all get together and celebrate and get closer together very soon. And the last thing I just want to mention is that I attended the grad ceremonies. I want to take a second to acknowledge the staff and administration from PSS, because they once again did an awesome job putting on the grad ceremonies under crazy circumstances. I'm not sure if you all got out there or not. The parade is great fun, watching the kids all pull up, and it's a really, really good energy to watch that parade. And I think there'll be a push for some component of that to remain in the years ahead, because a lot of fun. And then the kids will pull out of their vehicle, get on the podium, receive their diploma and whatever else, and have a couple words about them, and then get in their vehicle and move along. The weather held out. The staff, again, did a great job organizing. So thanks to them, and thanks to the teachers and admin and staff at all the schools. It's been another long year at our schools, and I think they did a great job delivering education to our youth throughout all this. I'm sure we're all looking forward to more normal school scenarios next year, but I just want to tip my hat to all the staff and teachers and admin while I have the moment. And most of all, I want to congratulate the grads of 2021. See them roll out. It's more fun to watch them all in a group together, dressed all funny. But they're just an amazing group of teenagers. There was, I think, 56 grads and 56 amazing teenagers. So, you know, it's been a crazy year for them to graduate under these conditions. I feel in many ways they've shown themselves to be more adaptable than many of us, and they've led us through the pandemic in many ways. So class 2021, congratulations, good luck. And that's it from my mayor's report. And councilors' reports. Councilor Craddock.
Thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. And just to follow up on your comments, it was a great weekend for the grads, and they've worked hard at home doing something that I don't know many of us would like to take on. So it shows their initiative, and they'll do well going forward. You and I attended the Spelcoomton Community Forest Board meeting last week, where one of the objectives of the meeting was to take a look at our annual cut and to see, due to the prices of fiber right now, if it would be wise to increase our cut this year. The public presentation we had indicated we would be looking at up to 10,000 cubic meters. What was identified for the cut this year was 5,750. When we talked about the value of the fiber right now, it was discussed that we should try and increase that amount to take advantage of the market and bring us the largest return for both of our communities. That discussion ended up being that we would take a look at increasing from the 10,000 we've already gone to the public with, increasing it another 5,000 to go to 15,000 this year. That would require a new public consultation on the additional 5,000, which could be done this September. And that amount of wood could still be cut within this year's time frame. So I think both communities realize that there's an opportunity we need to take advantage of. So that was approved. So it's good to see that's happening. The other thing that came out of the meeting, I've asked about touring the area so I have a better understanding. So I am getting a tour on Monday with Clay. So it'll be interesting for me personally to keep appraised of what's going on and where it's going on. So a good meeting and all. The last thing I have is on the weekend, I was excited to see a train come into town. I still think it's kind of like seeing the horses downtown. And I had a chance to talk to the engineers, and starting on July 7th, the Rocky Mountaineer will be starting to come back through the community, and shortly thereafter, freight will start being hauled on the line again. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noble, go ahead.
On Monday, June 7th, I attended the PWA's AGM. And the PWA Board of Directors announced that Alan McEwen and Saad Hassan have resigned from the board. Both remain members of the PWA and generously continue to make themselves available to the board when advice or background on issues is needed. And there's discussion by a PWA member, one of our archery bowl members, that they had a conversation with the Whistler bylaw and were informed that Whistler is planning to expand its boundaries as far as Rutherford, which will eliminate the ability to shoot bows or hunt or anything else. And I was actually wondering if Mayor Richmond might have any info on this.
It's news to me. Sorry, who said that to you?
One of our PWA members had an encounter with a bylaw from Whistler who told him that it was in the works and it was going to happen. So I would like to get more information on this if possible, because that
I will certainly follow up. I'm a little skeptical. I feel like it's something I would have been alerted to, I would hope, but maybe
I would
not.
hope so, but maybe we could look into it, because that would have a huge impact on a few communities around here and
Sure, I'll follow up.
usage.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it. Councillor Antonelli, go ahead.
Yeah, so on Thursday, there's going to be a meeting in the Owl Ridge community with Clay Tyndall, who's representing the community forest. I guess one of the issues has come up is that the SLRD doesn't have a lot of representation in the community forest, despite the community forest being in the SLRD. And so I think the communication with the community is lacking a little bit. So there's a cut block proposed for right beside a residential area, and there's a lot of questions about, the community forest is a very long-term project. So they're a little upset that they would select an area to log right beside a residence, and that we need to do a little bit more coordinating between the operations of Lilwat Forestry and the community forest, because in the last few years, there's been, every year, there's been logging in that neighborhood, and the residents would like to see it spread out a little bit more. So while you might be thinking it's a good idea to increase the cut for the community forest, I think we really need to make sure we're consulting with the community, everyone's informed, and also know about the other operations that are going on, because it's cumulative, the impacts. It's not just from the cut of the community forest. So that meeting is Thursday, 4 p.m.
Thank you. I'm not sure if the cuts you're referring to are Lilwat Ventures or community forest cuts. I have to.
Both. So the one the meeting is on is about the community forest. But the cumulative impacts I'm speaking of are all the other cutting that's taking place in the same area, essentially by the same people.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Councillor Caddick, you want to?
Is that meeting on Zoom?
No, it's live. People are actually going to be outdoors together.
Whereabouts?
Elridge.
Just up at the top in the sort of.
There's a yellow gate. There's a yellow gate, if you know about it.
Yep. Yeah, that's where it's at. Okay. And I guess I could have done this before. As part of my mayor's report, I wanted to discuss, I would like to have us direct staff to bring a report back on where we are at as a municipality with our calls to action with regards to truth and reconciliation. I just felt it was timely. I feel like it's been a priority for us here, but we haven't sort of checked in a while to see where we're at. And I would, I think it would be good for the council to refresh ourselves on some of the calls to action we have looked at, some of the things that we've considered, and others that we might like to consider. So with the permission of council, I would like to direct staff to bring back a report in the future, updating us on where we're at with the calls to action and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for discussion. So throwing that out to the rest of council for conversation now, and if everybody's okay with it, we can direct staff to do that. Councillor Zant, go ahead.
I agree. I feel I feel like it's a good idea to move forward with that. And see what the staff report comes back with.
So everybody's keen on that. Can somebody make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Make a motion.
Second by Councillor Norwood to direct staff to come back with a report in the future on calls to action and the Truth and Reconciliation. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Correspondence for action. We have only one from Mr. Johnson. From Bounded Farms, concern regarding maintenance of landscaping installed in the downtown core. The recommendation is that staff provide a response. Is there any thoughts on this, or would somebody like to just move that?
I definitely think we should respond to it. I had similar concerns to him as a landscaper working on the other side of that project.
Okay. So yeah, no, I definitely think we should respond. Go ahead, Councillor Caddick.
Yeah, I think we should respond also. I guess the other day when I was downtown, I was actually thanking the ladies that have been doing the landscaping and what a wonderful job they're doing out there. So I guess even reading his letter, I'm not really, I guess I'd have to have someone point out to me from that side where the deficiency is, because I think we're doing a tremendous job with the landscaping in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Gilmore, did you want to add some context?
Yes, please. So we were a little bit behind getting started this year. We did have a little bit of a late start just due to, obviously, we've now taken over the downtown as of this year, and we've taken out all of the new landscaping out in the Sunstone Ridge area. So it has expanded our areas. We did actually hire this individual to help us kick off the startup in order to assist staff while we also had some staff absences due to illness. So we weren't able to actually get some of those individuals to help out at the time. We had also applied for 2 summer student grants, and we were waiting for confirmation of that before we could advertise. And we have since hired, we were unsuccessful on one, we were successful in another, and that person starts June 21st. And we are also hiring for another seasonal parks worker, whoever that was in the budget, as starting July 1st. So we were a little bit behind. However, that is what some of the situations were outside of our control. Others were because budget was later in the season. So I know this year Public Works staff were very busy with the annual flower order that you will see, and have busy doing that. And then we'll be getting everyone back up onto some type of rotational cycle to keep up on the landscaping. But just to say, it has been quite an increase for the amount required in the downtown and for the Sunstone area. It was a large jump this year.
Ms. Gilmore, the summer student is pretty much dedicated to landscaping, is that?
It's a parks worker, yeah. So they would be in charge of weeding and push mowing and those types of, or ride-on mowing, whatever it happens to be, but yes.
Councillor Noble, go ahead.
I agree with Councillor Craddock that they do an excellent job, but they did get behind. And I've noticed that since I spoke to Riley that they have been plugging away and catching up on it.
Okay, so a motion to have staff respond to Mr. Johnson. Moved by
Motion.
Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Zant. Any other discussion on this? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have 8 items of correspondence for information. Would anybody like to pull anything out?
Move to receive and file.
None. Motion to receive and file. Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Decision on late business. Late business, we have none. There's a motion. Question period. For those in attendance who wish to ask questions, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. This will notify village staff that you would like to ask a question, and staff will unmute your microphone when it is your turn to speak. Please be reminded that only questions directly related to items discussed during this meeting are permitted. Ms. Kennedy.
We have no questions, Mayor Richmond.
All right. It's because our discussions are just so clear. Okay, then we will recess. I'll recess the regular meeting, and let's take what does everyone want? 15 minutes before we go back in camera.
15 would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll put yourselves off video, and we'll reconvene at 11:35. Okay, so I'm going to reopen the regular meeting, and then I'm going to ask for a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
I'm resuming.
Nice work. Put that in your report. Rise with report, we have none. So we're on to 22, and I will look for a motion to adjourn the regular council meeting, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Councillor Noble, second by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks very much, everyone.
Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Have a
You
good
too.
day.